Dear Leo, radiant soul of the Zodiac, let me ask you something right at the start. Have you been feeling like something is shifting beneath the surface? Like the energy around you is vibrating with a strange, undeniable tension? If so, you're not imagining it. And this video, this exact moment, isn't random. It's a response to the silent call your soul has been sending out into the universe. Today's message is not just a reading. It's a cosmic revelation. Because what's coming next isn't just karmic justice, it's a return of your throne. Your light, Leo, the one they tried to dim, dismiss, or outshine, is about to burst through every illusion placed in your path. And the ones who once doubted you? The ones who mocked your brilliance or tried to replace you? They're starting to panic. Not because of what you'll do to them, but because of what your unstoppable rise says about them. You see, Leo, the universe is aligning in ways that only happen once in a generation. As the sun, your ruling planet, enters a rare power alignment with forces of transformation and divine truth, it opens a gateway. Not just for vindication, but for resurrection. This moment is about reclaiming what was always yours, your dignity, your influence, your light. And no, you don't need anyone's permission to shine. The time of asking has passed. This is your reminder, you were never lost. You were preparing. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was sacred stillness. Your patience wasn't passivity, it was inner alignment. And now, the stage is clearing. The lights are turning toward you again. The crown you thought was taken? It's still waiting for your hand. If these words already stir something inside you, a knowing, a spark, a memory, take a deep breath and trust that you're in the right place. Comment below and write, "I'm ready to reclaim my light." When you declare it, you activate it. Let the universe hear you. And if you're new here, welcome. This is Eternal Mindfulness, a channel devoted to soul-aligned guidance, emotional healing, and cosmic clarity. Whether this is your first video or your 50th, know this: your presence here means something. Not just to me, but to the energetic web we're all a part of. So allow me to pause and express my deepest gratitude. Every like you leave, every thoughtful comment, every subscription, it brings you closer to this soul family we're building, and it empowers us to keep sharing these transformational messages. Thank you for being part of this journey. And believe me, my dear Leo, you'll want to stay with me until the very end of this message. Because what the universe is about to reveal could change everything. Your story is not over. It's just beginning again, brighter than ever. Now tell me, beloved lion, what guided you here today? What part of you is finally ready to be seen? Let's find out. Together. There is a kind of justice that doesn't arrive with noise or retribution. It arrives like the morning sun, quiet, undeniable, and impossible to resist. And for you, Leo, that justice is already in motion. What we're witnessing now is not punishment, but rebalancing. When someone tries to dim your light, not through truth, but through fear or control, the universe doesn't retaliate with the same darkness. Instead, it simply removes the illusion. That is what is unfolding now. Those who whispered doubt behind your back, who undermined your integrity or turned others against your natural radiance, are beginning to sense a shift. Not a dramatic fall, but a subtle unraveling. The energy that once held them in place is slipping, like sand through clenched fingers. You might not have fought back directly. Perhaps you chose silence, retreat, or self-preservation. And that decision, though it may have been painful, wasn't weakness. It was wisdom. Because sometimes the strongest response isn't resistance, it's endurance. And Leo, your endurance has not gone unnoticed. The cosmic rhythm, ever watchful, has recorded your patience, your restraint, and your inner clarity. What others mistook as passivity was, in fact, your soul aligning with something far greater than revenge, alignment with truth. In the cycles of nature, every season arrives exactly when it's meant to. Just as spring cannot be rushed, neither can the blooming of truth. But when it comes, it transforms everything. That's what tomorrow symbolizes. Not just a new day, but a change in gravity. The karmic tides are turning. And you, Leo, are at the center of that shift, not to destroy, but to illuminate. And illumination has a strange power. It doesn't force the truth. It reveals it. In teachings that emphasize presence and right perception, we're reminded that all things move in accordance with cause and effect. But more than that, we are told, do not react, see. Do not cling, allow. What's happening now isn't something you need to control. You are not the judge, the punisher, or the redeemer. You are the sun. Your only task is to rise. So when you begin to notice those who hurt you stumbling, losing their footing, or becoming shadows of the roles they once played, know that it is not your doing, but the natural consequence of misalignment. When one acts out of deceit, they walk further from the center of what sustains them. And when you act out of integrity, you return to it. That is the quiet, irreversible power of real light. It doesn't just show the path forward. It burns away what cannot remain. Let your light do the work now. Let the unraveling happen as it must. You are no longer responsible for what others do with their darkness. The truth that once lived only in your heart is now echoing through the ethers. Let it ring. And if you find your heart feeling heavy in the face of their collapse, breathe gently. Compassion doesn't mean tolerating harm. It means understanding that those who tried to harm you were already at war within themselves. Their betrayal of your light was first a betrayal of their own. What is justice if not the return to balance? What is balance if not the moment where all pretending falls away? That moment is close, Leo. The curtain is lifting. Not because you pulled it, but because you were never meant to stand in the shadows. There's something remarkable about the light of Leo. It's not a borrowed glow. It doesn't flicker to mimic someone else's fire. It is, by nature, sovereign, rooted in self-awareness and born from within. And yet, so many times in life, that light gets misunderstood. When someone stands confidently in who they are, those who haven't yet found their own truth often interpret it as arrogance. But this is not your burden to carry. What others cannot recognize in themselves, they will fear in others. And your light, Leo, has always been more than brightness. It has been a mirror. You've learned to remain still when others pushed you to react. You held your tongue not because you were afraid, but because somewhere deep inside, you understood that true radiance doesn't shout. It simply shines. This inner stillness, this quiet patience, is often confused with weakness. But in reality, it is the slow gathering of a power that doesn't need to prove itself. Like the sun before dawn, you've been building momentum in the dark, waiting not for permission, but for alignment. Now, that alignment is approaching. Not because someone is finally applauding you, but because the cycle is completing itself. You didn't force it. You prepared for it. And the fire you've carried silently in your chest is beginning to rise to the surface. You may feel it as restlessness, or a sudden pull to speak more boldly, create more freely, or step into spaces you once avoided. Don't ignore that call. It's not coming from ego. It's your essence reminding you that it's time to stop shrinking. In the same way that a seed doesn't apologize for becoming a tree, you don't need to apologize for growing into your greatness. Your existence is not a threat, it's an invitation. You invite others to wake up, to remember their own brilliance. But not everyone is ready. And when they're not, they may try to dim you. They may dismiss, criticize, or withdraw. And here's the quiet truth, Leo, that has nothing to do with you. That is the discomfort of someone watching you step into what they still fear within themselves. You are not here to make everyone comfortable. You are here to be true. And truth, when it stands tall, can be unsettling. But it also liberates. The fire that lives inside you is not here to burn bridges or destroy, it is here to illuminate paths, to warm hearts, and to light the way forward. That fire is sacred. It's your responsibility to keep it alive. There's a teaching that says when a person realizes their own nature, they become like the sun, untouched by clouds, unharmed by storms. Clouds may gather. Shadows may fall. But the sun remains. Constant. Radiant. Certain. You are that certainty, Leo. And the world is aching for it. This is the season of remembrance. Of standing tall without needing defense. Of speaking truth without needing agreement. Let your presence be your message. Let your light speak where words fall short. Those who are meant to walk with you will recognize it. Those who aren't will move out of the way. You are not just becoming bright. You are returning to the brilliance that was always yours. Not for applause. Not for validation. But because that is who you are. And no one, not time, not doubt, not resistance can take that away. When the Sun and the Six of Wands appear together in a reading, especially for a soul like yours, Leo, it's more than just a message of victory. It's a quiet but powerful declaration that your path is no longer invisible. This combination is one of the most luminous pairings in the tarot, and it carries within it a profound initiation. Not only will you overcome what tried to block you, but you will also rise in a way that becomes undeniable, even to those who once refused to see your light. What makes this moment so sacred is not that others finally applaud you. It's that you no longer need them to. The recognition, though it may come in the form of praise or tangible success, is only a reflection of what has shifted inside you. You've returned to your center. You've stopped negotiating your worth. And now, life is echoing that clarity back to you, like a mountain finally answering a call you made in silence years ago. The sun speaks to authenticity, raw, radiant, unfiltered truth. It represents a joy that cannot be fabricated, and a clarity that pierces through the fog of pretense. The Six of Wands, on the other hand, represents triumph after effort, but also the visibility that comes with walking your path openly. Together, these cards don't just forecast external success. They speak to an internal revolution, the kind where you stop shrinking to make others feel comfortable and start owning the space your soul was always meant to inhabit. Think of it like this: a lotus doesn't force others to admire it. It just blooms. And in that blooming, it changes the water around it. This is the essence of this tarot pairing. You are stepping into a chapter where you're blooming your unapologetic truth, your refined gifts. Your radiant confidence becomes a force of transformation in the environment around you. You no longer chase approval. You embody presence. And presence moves everything. There's a teaching that says, when you walk the path of integrity, even your shadow walks in alignment. What this means is that when you stop performing and start living honestly, everything that once felt like contradiction begins to fall into place. The cracks stop being shameful, they become windows. And in your case, Leo, these windows are letting in sunlight. It's important to remember that this success doesn't require you to be loud. In fact, what's most magnetic about this energy is its stillness. The kind of confidence that doesn't demand. The kind of power that doesn't push. The kind of light that doesn't flicker, even when others are uncomfortable in its glow. You've worked hard not just in the material sense, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically to become someone whose triumph is not built on ego, but on essence. This is why it feels different this time. This is why you're being seen. And for those who turned away from you, doubted you, or resisted your truth, this moment becomes a mirror. They're not just witnessing your rise. They're confronting their own refusal to believe in light when it didn't look how they expected. You don't need to shame them. Your presence is enough. Your walk forward is enough. Your quiet blooming is enough. So let each step you take now be rooted in the knowing that you have nothing to prove. You are not rising for validation. You are rising because your time has come. And the universe is ready to witness it with you. When people attempt to harm you, mislead you, or take what was never theirs to hold, it often stems not from power but from fear. And fear, when left unchecked, tries to imitate strength. But imitation, like a shadow pretending to be substance, cannot last. Eventually, everything borrowed crumbles. Everything built on illusion dissolves. And now, Leo, you're standing in a time where those false structures are starting to fall. Not because you willed it, but because truth has a rhythm of its own. The same hands that once grasped for your light are now finding nothing to hold. The positions they stole, the trust they manipulated, the influence they twisted, it all begins to fade like smoke in sunlight. Because what was never earned, never truly stays. And while they look back, you've already moved forward. What they chased through control, you are embodying through clarity. And it's that clarity that separates you now. You no longer react from pain or impulse. Your choices aren't rooted in proving anything. You become still enough inside to recognize the subtle difference between apology and manipulation. Between sincerity and performance. Between those who want to walk beside your growth and those who want to cling to the version of you that no longer exists. There's a quiet strength that grows inside someone who has walked through fire without burning others. You've learned how to rebuild your boundaries not as walls, but as transparent shields of self-respect. This is not the armor of anger, but the garment of knowing. And once you've seen clearly, you can't unsee. You can offer compassion, even forgiveness, but you don't offer your throne to someone who only kneels when it suits them. There's a teaching that says, the one who harms you teaches you how to hold your center. They point out the parts of you still willing to bend too far, to give too much, to forget your worth for temporary belonging. And once you see it, you can thank them for the lesson and release them from the role. Now, you stand in a different place. Not above others but deeper within yourself. Your light no longer flickers with every external storm. It burns from a source that's not dependent on attention, praise, or apology. And this shift, this anchored presence, size what they cannot access. They may knock on the door of your energy, but your intuition will know which voices carry truth, and which are echoes of old stories trying to survive. So when they circle back, trying to reclaim a version of you that no longer lives here, respond with silence if needed. Or respond with kindness. But do not respond with self-abandonment. You've come too far for that. You've bled into too many lessons. You've sat with your shadows, and now they sit beside you like softened lions, no longer wild, but no longer weak. And the ones who once mistook your gentleness for gullibility will have no choice but to see it now for what it always was, power, refined by awareness. Let your actions speak. Let your boundaries be quiet prayers for your own soul. Let your path unfold without needing an audience. And trust that the same force that protected your truth in silence will now carry it into visibility. You are not here to convince anyone of your light. You are here to be it. There is a moment in every true awakening when you realize that the thing you were chasing was never ahead of you, it was always inside you, waiting for you to slow down enough to hear it. And for you, Leo, this is that moment. The truth is, you're not reclaiming power from others. You're retrieving the fragments of yourself that you once scattered through self-doubt, through overgiving, through believing that your light needed permission to shine. What you're stepping into now is not just about reputation or visibility. It's deeper. It's a restoration of soul authority. In the language of energy, power is not control. It's coherence. It's when all the scattered pieces of your being return to center. And when that happens, when your thoughts, voice, actions, and presence are aligned, you become magnetic. Opportunities, relationships, resources, they begin to move toward you, not because you're striving, but because you're clear. Your light no longer leaks through insecurity or overcompensation. It holds. It radiates. And that radiance becomes a field. People feel it before they understand it. That moment when you walk into a space and something shifts, it's not about ego or dominance. It's about energetic integrity. You've done the work to remember who you are. And because of that, the space remembers too. The room adjusts. The conversations shift. The attention naturally moves toward your orbit. Not because you forced it, but because you've become unmistakably you. There's a principle in ancient wisdom that says, when the mind is still and the heart is upright, the universe responds without confusion. This is the alignment you are stepping into. You're no longer reaching outward, asking others to validate what you know within. You are speaking from your center, and that voice carries frequency. That frequency doesn't just inspire. It summons. It calls back the opportunities that once missed you. It calls forward the collaborations that match your truth. It weaves a new rhythm into the environments you enter. And still, you do not need to grasp. Because the right position, the right moment, the right door, it isn't a prize to be fought over. It's a response to your presence. The same way gravity doesn't chase planets, yet everything in orbit finds its place around it. You're not here to convince anyone that you're worthy. You're here to become so clear in your worth that convincing becomes irrelevant. That clarity becomes your protection. It becomes your shield. And it allows your energy to filter what enters and what no longer belongs. What you're reclaiming now isn't power over others. It's power over self-forgetting. You're releasing the old stories that said you had to prove your value. You're walking away from roles that required you to shrink. And in doing so, you're teaching others without a single word that real power is calm. It is compassionate. It doesn't have to roar to be felt. But when it does choose to speak, the world listens. This isn't just about shining. It's about embodying light so fully that anything misaligned falls away effortlessly. Not out of anger, but because it simply can't stay in the same frequency. You are no longer participating in spaces that do not reflect your truth. And you don't have to burn bridges, your radiance is doing the sorting for you. So let this be the season where you stop reaching. Start receiving. Stop defending. Start radiating. You don't have to arrive anywhere. You already are where your power begins. If you've made it here, all the way to this moment, then let's take a quiet breath together because something inside you is ready. Not someday. Not eventually. But now. The truth is, Leo, you've been waiting long enough. You've played small in rooms that didn't know how to hold your greatness. You've swallowed your voice just to maintain the peace. You've doubted your light not because it was dim, but because others weren't ready to stand beside it. But the universe is done letting you stay hidden. It's time. And not because you have to force it, but because you've finally stopped asking for permission. There's a deep remembering happening inside you now. It's not about becoming someone new. It's about returning to the self that always knew you were meant to lead, not through control or noise, but by presence, by clarity, by truth. So I invite you to pause and ask yourself gently, are you ready to live in full alignment with your own brilliance? Are you willing to show up, unapologetically, for the version of you that no longer bends to earn space, but simply claims it? You don't have to wait for a spotlight to shine. You are the light. You've always been. And when you walk forward with that knowing, something shifts. Your words begin to carry more weight. Your decisions begin to ripple wider. Your energy becomes unmistakable, because it's rooted not in effort but in essence. So let this moment be your quiet revolution. The one where you choose yourself not because others failed to, but because you no longer need their validation to remember your value. If this message has stirred something inside you, I invite you to let it rise. You can begin by writing it into the world. Leave a comment below and declare it out loud, I am the light no one can dim. Or if it speaks to your journey more truthfully, say, my honor is returning with interest from the universe. Say it not to impress, but to activate. Because when we speak from truth, the universe always echoes back. And maybe now is also the time to reflect. What part of your story have others misunderstood? What strength did they mislabel as ego, when in fact it was resilience? I would love to read about it. Share your experience in the comments. Your words might be the mirror someone else needs to finally see themselves clearly too. I want to take a moment and thank you truly for being here, for showing up, for listening not just with your ears, but with your spirit. Every like, every comment, every subscription you offer becomes part of the greater current we're creating here at Eternal Mindfulness. This isn't just a channel, it's a constellation of souls remembering their light, together. And your presence here makes this constellation brighter. So, Leo, take this as your sign. Tomorrow is not just another date on the calendar. It's the beginning of your return to the center. The place you were always meant to stand. The throne you never truly lost, only forgot how to sit in. Now it's here, waiting, grounded in gold, steady beneath your feet. Step into it. Let your voice be heard. Let your radiance rise. You don't need permission to shine. You already are the sun.